Ukraine, where Crimea is overwhelmingly voted in a very disputed referendum to join Russia. We'll start with the left-leaning Libération. Its front-page headline is Crimea under Russian guidance. Now that's used as a play on words for the French for Russian roulette, roulette russe, as opposed to roulette russe. So inside it notes that many of the pro-Kiev Crimeans boycotted the referendum on joining Russia, quoting one activist who said, "We had no choice. Boycotting is the only weapon we have." In its editorial, headlined Contempt, it says Russian President Vladimir Putin set off the illegal annexation of Crimea in contempt of international law and of the whole world. And it says the military and political coup orchestrated by Putin sets a dangerous precedent, and that his victory is Europe's failure, which showed itself incapable of dealing effectively with the Ukrainian crisis. Barack Obama is also pointed out for being powerless in the face of Putin's aggression. And it concludes by saying that the international community must remain firm. Now, some of the French papers are also talking of a new Cold War. The right-leaning Le Figaro in its editorial says that the annexation is likely to set off Western sanctions of Russian interests and subsequent reprisals from Moscow. And it wonders if firmness will work where diplomacy has failed on the part of the West. But it urges both sides to be prudent and come to a compromise, as even Vladimir Putin knows that Crimea is not really worth spiralling into a new Cold War. And elsewhere, Le Figaro reports on a new Ukrainian National Guard that's intended to reinforce Kiev's defences. It interviews a young economics graduate who left his job as a cook to enlist. He says he never wants to have to fight, but he will if he has to. The National Guard could reach up to 60,000 people in total, and many doubt the Ukrainians' military's ability to really resist the Russians. But the Oleg Tyanibok, the leader of the right-wing nationalist Svoboda party, is quoted as saying he does not rule out a partisan war in Crimea. And an awful lot of these new National Guardsmen are being recruited from the self-defense militias that were accused of an awful lot of the violence during the Maidan protests. And that's something that will not really reassure Russian speakers in Ukraine, one imagines.
Okay, let's move on to something different. It's been, of course, a big return to the media spotlight for the former French President Nicolas Sarkozy recently. I think this is the question we've asked in the paper review more times than any other in the last couple of years. Is he set for a comeback?
Well, according to Le Figaro, Nicolas Sarkozy remains, quote, the champion for 2017. That is among his own party now. Latest polls show that 62% of UMP voters want him to run in the presidential election in 3 years' time. And those figures show a steady hold in his popularity over the last 6 months, suggesting that his recent ordeals in which he was recorded by a former aide and also his phone tapped by investigating judges haven't really dented his appeal. Now, another poll published by Le Parisien says that 55% of French voters think he would have made a better president than François Hollande had he been re-elected. Now, but he has also slipped in popularity, with 50% of those polled holding a poor opinion of him. That's 5 points down. And now what that says about François Hollande, I really don't know.
Yeah.
But Alain Offray in Libération says that the conspiracy theories circulating on the right, which claim that François Hollande's government is behind the tapping of Nicolas Sarkozy's phone, is helping the former president, helping to feed into his own image of a man embattled and stimulated by adversity. Now, he's also profiting from the disarray in his own party, where there really is no challenger. The next most popular potential leader, Alain Juppé, has really no real substantial support. He's a very distant 18% in the polls.
Now let's talk about the far right now and the National Front. They're aiming very big, actually, in next Sunday's municipal elections. How do things stand for them?
That's right. Les Echos, which is a pro-business newspaper, raises the spectre of 1995, which was a sort of a breakthrough year for the Front National in municipal elections. They didn't really win that many town halls, but they did benefit from basically the right and the left vote being split in both cases. And Jérôme Fouquet of the polling group EFOP says that things are even more favourable now because it's likely to benefit from discontent with the socialist government. In 1995, it was a right-wing government headed by President Jacques Chirac. And he also notes that low turnouts could hit the party hard, which historically was not the case. And he says a certain section of the electorate hesitates between not voting at all or voting just to tweak the nose of the establishment.
And finally, of course, we've been telling you over the weekend and today as well about the terrible smog that we've had Paris this past week. It's now even having an effect on the election of Paris's next mayor.
Yes, Le Figaro says that pollution is shaking up the close of the campaign. Now, the last week of the campaign was expected to be very routine, benefiting the socialist candidate Anne Hidalgo to succeed her fellow socialist Bertrand Delanoë as mayor of Paris. Now, her UMP rival Nathalie Kosciusko-Morizet has accused the socialist-run city council of doing too little too late to deal with the smog problem. It, of course, it instigated alternative driving days this week and also laid on free public transport in an attempt to allay the pollution. But Hidalgo responds by saying that Kosciusko-Morizet, a former ecology minister, was the minister for diesel, where she basically encouraged France's heavy use of diesel cars, which has been blamed for the problem. And Hidalgo also takes aims at the Greens, a member of whom Pierre Serrin is the vice president of the Paris regional transport company, and apparently he signed off on an order of 320 diesel buses in December. The Greens accused the socialist candidate of defamation and playing the man and not the ball.
OK, well, we'll have the results of those elections this time next week, in fact, on France 24, so we'll be able to tell you whether it has had an impact. Oliver, thank you very much. Oliver and Stephen back with us a little bit later on. Coming up for you, the very latest news, of course, here on France 24. We'll be speaking, in fact, live to our chief foreign editor, Rob Parsons, who's in Crimea. And in focus in the next half hour, we have a special report looking at exactly what the Catholic Church is really doing to tackle the problem of paedophile priests. That's in the next half an hour on France 24, so don't go away.